The bank statement spread across my kitchen table felt like a death sentence. $23,000 in unauthorized charges, each one a calculated betrayal by the children I'd raised with unwavering devotion. My hands trembled as I traced the itemized expenses: luxury wedding venue deposits, designer floral arrangements, premium catering services, all charged to the emergency credit card I'd foolishly added Sophia to 3 years ago. At 64, I should have recognized the pattern earlier. The subtle manipulations, the emotional blackmail disguised as family loyalty, the way my love had been weaponized against my better judgment. My teacher's pension of $2,800 monthly seemed pathetic against this mountain of debt that would take years to repay, if I ever could. The house felt hollow around me, echoing with memories of better times when Richard was alive and my children still pretended to care about more than my bank balance. His favorite armchair sat empty by the window, gathering dust along with my hopes that maintaining familiar routines might somehow preserve what remained of our fractured family bonds. My phone buzzed against the granite countertop, the kitchen island Richard had surprised me with for our anniversary, back when surprises came from love rather than credit card statements. A text from Sophia appeared on the screen: "Mom, can you cover the final venue payment? It's due tomorrow and David's parents are being difficult about their contribution. You're literally saving my wedding. Love you. Love you." 3 words that had become the currency of manipulation, the price I paid for the privilege of being used by the people who were supposed to cherish me unconditionally. The front door slammed with familiar force, followed by Felix's heavy footsteps echoing through the hallway. My 36-year-old son had moved back in 8 months ago after his divorce, claiming he needed time to re-establish himself. What he'd actually established was a pattern of treating my home like a free hotel with maid service included. "Mom, I need the car tonight," he called from the entryway, not bothering to show his face. "Jasmine and I are looking at that loft downtown." Jasmine, the 24-year-old influencer who transformed my living room into her personal photography studio, complete with ring lights and costume changes that left my house looking like a fashion emergency. When I'd gently mentioned the disruption, Felix had accused me of being jealous of his relationship and resisted to change. "Felix," I called back, surprised by the steel in my own voice. "Come here, please." He appeared in the doorway wearing the expensive jacket I'd bought him for Christmas, his expression already radiating annoyance at being inconvenienced by my existence in my own home. "What's up?" "I'm running late." I gestured toward the statement spread across the table. "Did you know about this?" His eyes darted to the papers, then away, a tell I'd learned to recognize when he was 7 and stealing cookies from the jar. "Know about what?" "Your sister charged $23,000 to my credit card for her wedding preparations." A pause. Then the shrug that made my blood freeze in my veins. "Yeah, she mentioned something about borrowing some money." "Look, Mom, it's not that big a deal. You can afford it, and Sophia's been incredibly stressed about the wedding planning." "Not that big a deal." $23,000 of my retirement security dismissed as casually as pocket change. "Felix, this represents my entire emergency fund." "This is..." "It's a loan," he interrupted, examining his fingernails with practiced indifference. "She'll pay you back eventually. Besides, you've got the house, your pension, Dad's life insurance money. You're financially stable." I stared at this man I'd raised, whose nightmares I'd soothed, whose dreams I'd supported through 2 failed business ventures and countless relationship disasters. Who now stood in my kitchen, in the house where he paid no rent, dismissing my financial devastation as an acceptable sacrifice for his sister's fairy tale wedding. Where was I when Sophia announced her engagement? I asked, shifting tactics. Felix froze mid-gesture. "What do you mean?" "The engagement celebration. I never received an invitation." "When did it happen?" Another pause, longer this time, pregnant with the weight of deliberate exclusion. "Oh, that. Yeah, I think they kept it really small. You know how Sophia is about intimate gatherings." The lies settled between us like poison gas. I could feel it seeping into my lungs, joining the accumulated toxicity of 1,000 similar dismissals. Birthday celebrations I learned about through social media posts. Holiday gatherings planned without my knowledge. Grandchildren's milestones shared with everyone except the grandmother who would have treasured every moment. I see. I folded the statement with deliberate precision. And the wedding itself? Will I be attending that? Of course you're invited to the wedding, Mom. Don't be so dramatic. Dramatic. As if expecting basic respect from my own children constituted theatrical overreach. The keys are on the hook, I said quietly. Try to bring the car back with some gas in it. Felix grabbed the keys and paused at the doorway. For a fleeting moment, I thought he might acknowledge the hurt in my voice, might recognize the pain behind my careful composure. Instead, he said, "Oh, and Jasmine's staying over tonight. We'll try to keep the noise down." The door slammed again, leaving me alone with the devastating evidence of how thoroughly I'd been erased from my own life. I walked to Richard's chair and sank into its familiar embrace, looking out at a neighborhood where normal families conducted their evening routines with respect and genuine affection. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Sophia. Forgot to mention, can you handle the catering deposit for next month? It's only $3,000. Dad's insurance should definitely cover it. You're literally the best mom ever. Only $3,000. Dad's insurance money, which had already been decimated by medical bills, Felix's investment disasters, and now Sophia's dream wedding. The safety net that was supposed to ensure my dignity in old age had become their personal ATM. I stared at the message until the words blurred together. Then I did something unprecedented in 37 years of motherhood. I deleted it without responding. But silence wouldn't be sufficient. Sitting in Richard's chair as darkness settled over the house, I understood that silence was just another form of enabling, another way of saying yes to people who'd forgotten how to hear no. The morning sun felt different somehow, sharper, more purposeful. I'd slept better than I had in months, as if some internal mechanism had finally aligned with reality. By 7 a.m., I was dressed and ready to begin what I now thought of as my liberation. My first call was to the credit card company. "I need to report unauthorized charges," I told the representative, my voice steady and clear. "My daughter has been using my card without permission for several months." The process was surprisingly straightforward. Yes, they could freeze the card immediately. Yes, they could dispute the charges. Yes, they would begin a formal investigation. I provided specific transaction details, $23,000 in unauthorized wedding expenses. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that if these charges are determined to be fraudulent, criminal charges may be filed against the unauthorized user." "I understand completely," I replied, and I did. My second call was to the bank. Within minutes, Felix's access to my checking and savings accounts was permanently revoked. The debit card he'd been using for his temporary expenses would be declined by noon. My third call was to Margaret Stone, the attorney who'd handled Richard's estate. We scheduled an immediate appointment to revise my will and explore legal options regarding the credit card fraud. By 9 a.m., I was sitting outside Riverside Elementary, where I'd taught second grade for 34 years before retirement. Watching parents deliver their children to school with lunch boxes and backpacks, I remembered when such simple acts of care had defined my relationship with my own children. My phone rang. "Sophia." I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, then again. On the fourth attempt, I answered. "Mom, thank God." Her voice was frantic with manufactured crisis. "Something's wrong with your credit card. The florist called saying the payment was declined, and now they're threatening to cancel our flower order." "The card has been frozen," I said calmly. "What? Why?" "Mom, the wedding is in 7 weeks. We have vendors who need to be paid immediately." I'm aware of the timeline, Sophia. Her voice shifted to the wheedling tone she'd perfected as a teenager. Mom, come on. Whatever's wrong with the card, we can fix it. Just call them and authorize the payments. These are legitimate wedding expenses. Are they? I asked. Because I don't recall authorizing $23,000 in charges. You said I could use the card for emergencies. The wedding deposits were emergencies. If we didn't pay them, we'd lose everything. Your wedding is not my financial emergency, Sophia. The silence stretched between us, heavy with her calculations, her desperate search for the right combination of words that would restore her access to my resources. Mom, you're being completely unreasonable. This is my wedding, your only daughter's wedding. Don't you want me to be happy? The question that had controlled me for decades. Don't you want me to be happy? Don't you love me enough to sacrifice everything for my convenience? I want you to pay for your own wedding, I said. Like adults do. We can't afford. Then plan a wedding you can afford. I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I turned it off. By noon, I was at the hardware store, purchasing new locks for every entrance to my house. The elderly clerk helped load them into my car, chatting about how easy modern locks were to install with the help of online tutorials. I returned home to find Felix's car in my driveway and Jasmine's photography equipment spread across my living room. The smell of her aromatherapy candles hung heavy in the air, making my eyes water. They were in the kitchen, Jasmine creating content with ingredients from my refrigerator while Felix sat at my table, absorbed in his phone. Mom, finally, Felix said without looking up. Something's wrong with my debit card, and Sophia's been calling all morning about some payment issue. The card was declined because I revoked your access to my accounts, I said, setting my purse on the counter. And I'm aware of Sophia's situation. Jasmine looked up from her phone, her perfectly contoured face expressing shock. Oh my God, Sandra, you scared us. Felix thought maybe you'd had some kind of mental episode, making such random financial decisions. Mental episode. This 24-year-old stranger who contributed nothing to my household had an opinion about my mental state. Jasmine, I said quietly, I need you to gather your equipment and leave. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. What? Why? Because this is my home, and you don't live here. Felix finally looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from confusion to indignation. Mom, what's gotten into you? You're acting completely insane. I'm acting like someone who owns her own house and manages her own finances. I moved to the coffee maker with deliberate calm. Jasmine, you have 15 minutes to collect your belongings. Felix. Jasmine looked to my son, expecting him to restore order to her disrupted world. Felix stood up, his jaw set in the stubborn expression I remembered from his teenage years. Mom, stop this nonsense. You're embarrassing yourself. Jasmine is my girlfriend, and she's welcome in this house. Not anymore. This is ridiculous. Over what? Some credit card confusion. Sophia will pay you back, she always does. I turned to face my son fully. When has Sophia ever paid me back, Felix? The car insurance I covered during college. The apartment deposit. The graduate school loan that was supposed to be temporary. That's different. That's what parents do. No, I said. That's what I did. Past tense. Jasmine had gone very still, finally sensing the shift in household dynamics. Maybe I should go, she said quietly. Yes, I agreed. You should. Felix's face flushed red with rage. If Jasmine leaves, I leave too. The ultimatum hung between us like a blade. For 37 years, those words would have terrified me. The threat of my children withdrawing their presence had been their most powerful weapon. I sipped my coffee and found it perfect. Your choice, I said. But if you leave, don't expect to return when it becomes convenient. You don't mean that. But I did mean it, and something in my expression conveyed that truth because Felix's confident demeanor cracked slightly. Mom, let's talk about this rationally. You're upset about money, I understand that. But destroying your family over credit card charges is insane. I'm not destroying my family, Felix. I'm simply declining to continue funding adults who treat me like an ATM with living quarters attached. Jasmine gathered her equipment with impressive speed, murmuring something about waiting in the car as she fled the kitchen. My son and I faced each other across the kitchen island, the same space where I'd served him thousands of meals, helped with homework, celebrated his victories and comforted him through defeats. This isn't you, Mom, he said, his voice softer now, trying a different approach. You're not cruel. You don't abandon people. You're the one who holds the family together. I agreed. But holding a family together requires effort from more than one person. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed with another call from Sophia. I looked at the screen and deliberately let it go to voicemail. Sophia's probably devastated right now, Felix said. Her wedding is ruined. Her wedding is not ruined. She simply needs to find alternative funding. With what money? She's a teacher, Mom, she makes nothing. I was a teacher too, Felix, for 34 years. I managed to pay for my own wedding. That was different. Everything cost less then. Everything cost less because people planned within their means. Felix was quiet for a long moment, studying my face as if seeing me clearly for the first time in years. What do you want from us? He asked finally. What did I want? An apology. Recognition of their exploitation. A promise to change. I want you to be adults, I said. I want you to take responsibility for your own lives. I want you to stop treating me like a resource to be depleted. And if we don't, then you'll discover what life looks like without my financial support. Felix grabbed his jacket from the chair back. Fine. You want to play hardball? We can play hardball. But don't expect us to come crawling back when you realize you've alienated the only people who love you. The casual cruelty of those words stole my breath momentarily. Goodbye, Felix, I said. The door slammed hard enough to rattle windows. I finished my coffee in the sudden quiet, then went to install the new locks. I had work to do. The locks were installed by 3 p.m., tested twice to ensure perfect function. The solid click they made felt like closing one chapter of my life and opening another. I kept one key and secured the spare in my jewelry box next to Richard's wedding ring. My appointment with Margaret Stone revealed the full scope of my options. The unauthorized charges would likely be recovered through the bank's fraud investigation. My will could be revised to reflect my new understanding of family dynamics. And if my children escalated their harassment, legal remedies were available. Sandy, Margaret said, leaning back in her leather chair, what you're describing sounds like financial elder abuse. Are you prepared for the potential consequences? More prepared than I've been for anything in years, I replied. I stopped at the grocery store on my way home, buying only what I needed for myself. A small roast, fresh vegetables, a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. Standing in the checkout line, I realized this was a special occasion, the first day I'd prioritized my own needs over my children's demands. The house felt different when I returned. Quieter, yes, but also cleaner somehow. Jasmine's equipment was gone. Felix's scattered belongings had disappeared. The air no longer carried the scent of entitlement and exploitation. I was preparing dinner when a gentle knock sounded at my back door. Through the window, I saw my neighbor from 3 houses down, a woman about my age whom I'd noticed tending her garden but never really spoken with. She held a covered dish in her hands. I'm Eleanor Walsh, she said when I opened the door. I live in the yellow house with the rose garden. I hope I'm not intruding, but I noticed some commotion earlier, raised voices and someone leaving with luggage. I wanted to make sure you were all right. Eleanor Walsh. I'd admired her flowers for years but never found the courage to introduce myself. I'm fine, I said automatically, then caught myself. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I'm having a difficult day, but I'm handling it. Would you like some company while you handle it? She asked, lifting the dish slightly. I made too much chicken casserole, and eating alone gets tedious. There was something in her eyes, recognition, perhaps, or understanding between two women who'd learned to navigate solitude. I was just opening a bottle of wine, I found myself saying. I'll get glasses, Eleanor said, as if it were already decided. An hour later, we were sharing her excellent casserole and my carefully hoarded wine. Eleanor was a widow too. Her husband had died 2 years ago from the same cancer that had taken Richard. She had one adult child living across the country, successful but distant. They call every Sunday, she said when I asked about her daughter. Dutiful calls. How are you, Mom? Are you eating well? Taking your medications? They mean well, but sometimes I feel like they're checking off a box. Visit with elderly mother, completed. At least they call, I said, then immediately felt disloyal for the comparison. Your children don't call. Sitting in my kitchen with this woman I barely knew, I found myself telling the whole story. The money, the exclusions, the casual dismissals, the engagement celebration I'd never been invited to, the credit card charges that had finally opened my eyes to how thoroughly I'd been used. Eleanor listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic sounds. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. How do you feel now? She asked. Having set those boundaries. Terrified, I admitted. And relieved. And guilty for feeling relieved. The guilt will fade, Eleanor said with certainty. The relief will grow stronger. How do you know? She smiled, and I noticed laugh lines around her eyes that made her face beautiful rather than merely pleasant. Because I went through something similar with my sister. Not money, but emotional manipulation. Years of being the one who always gave in, always accommodated, always sacrificed my peace for family harmony. Finally, I stopped. Do you regret it? I regret how long it took me to do it. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Mom, please call me back. I'm scared and don't know what to do about the wedding. I'm sorry if I upset you, but please don't punish me for using the card when you said it was for emergencies. I showed the message to Eleanor, who read it with a thoughtful expression. Still playing the victim, she observed. Notice how she's sorry if she upset you, not sorry for taking $23,000 without permission. And she's reframing theft as punishment. I hadn't noticed the careful wording, but Eleanor was right. Even in her apology, Sophia was manipulating the narrative. What would you do? I asked. What feels right to you? I looked at the message again, feeling the familiar tug of maternal guilt. Sophia was scared. Sophia needed help. Sophia was sorry, or at least claimed to be. But underneath that guilt was something new, clear-eyed recognition of the pattern. The crisis, the appeal to my emotions, the subtle blame shifting, the expectation that love would override judgment. I deleted the message without responding. Good, Eleanor said simply. We talked until nearly 10 p.m. about books and gardening and the peculiar loneliness of widowhood. About children who saw their parents as resources rather than people. About the courage required to choose personal peace over others' expectations. When Eleanor finally left, promising to return the casserole dish the next day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the beginning of a friendship based on who I was rather than what I could provide. I was washing our wine glasses when my phone rang. Felix. Mom. His voice was different, less confident, more uncertain. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot today. Jasmine and I are staying at her place tonight, but I wanted to call and talk. I'm listening. The debit card thing really messed us up. I had to pay for dinner with quarters from the car. He paused, clearly expecting me to offer a solution. When I didn't, he continued, Sophia's really upset. She's been crying all day. The venue called and said if they don't receive final payment by Friday, they're canceling the booking. That sounds stressful for her. Another pause, longer this time. Mom, I don't understand what's happening. You're acting like a completely different person. Maybe you never really knew me very well. The silence stretched between us. Finally, Felix said, so what now? We just don't talk anymore. We can talk anytime you want, Felix. But the conversation will be different. Different how? I won't be giving you money. I won't be solving your problems. I won't be pretending that exploitation is the same thing as love. Jesus, Mom, you make it sound like we're criminals or something. Aren't you? The question hung in the air. I could hear him breathing, struggling with a response that would restore the old dynamic without acknowledging any wrongdoing. I need to think about this, he said finally. Take all the time you need, I told him, and meant it. After he hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by evidence of an evening that had surprised me. 2 wine glasses, the lingering aroma of Eleanor's homemade casserole, the sense that perhaps life existed beyond the boundaries I'd always accepted. The siege began the next morning. I woke to find Sophia's car in my driveway, my daughter sitting on the front porch in yesterday's clothes, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Through the window, I could see she'd been crying for hours. I took my time getting dressed, then opened the door at 8:30. Mom. Sophia's voice was hoarse. I've been here since 5 a.m. We need to talk. Good morning, Sophia. You look terrible. She struggled to her feet, swaying slightly. I didn't sleep. I can't eat. The wedding is ruined, and I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, I said calmly. I'm simply not doing things for you anymore. The venue called yesterday afternoon. The final payment was due, and when they couldn't process it, she dissolved into fresh tears. 2 years of planning, Mom. 2 years, and now we have nothing. I studied my daughter's face, really looked at her perhaps for the first time in months. At 32, Sophia still had the ability to make herself appear like a wounded child when she wanted something. What does David think about all this? I asked. David doesn't know, she said quickly. I haven't told him about the money problems. He thinks everything's paid for. Her voice cracked. Mom, please, I'm begging you. Just this once, help me fix this. Just this once, the phrase that had preceded every financial request for the past decade. Sophia, sit down, I said, settling into one of the porch chairs Richard had built years ago. We're going to have a conversation, but it's not the conversation you're expecting. She perched on the edge of the other chair like a bird ready to flee. If this is about paying you back, I will. I promise. Once David and I are settled after the honeymoon. When did you decide I wasn't worth including in your engagement celebration? The question caught her completely off guard. What? Your engagement party. When did you and David decide that your father's death meant I was no longer family? Sophia's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. It wasn't like that. It was just immediate family. David's parents, his sister. I am your immediate family, Sophia. I'm your mother. I know that, but... When did you decide that using my credit card without permission was acceptable? You said I could use it for emergencies. A wedding is not an emergency. A wedding is a choice. And even if it were an emergency, $23,000 requires a conversation. Sophia's composure was fracturing. Fine. I should have asked first. I'm sorry. But the damage is done now, and we can fix it if you'll just. No. The word hung between us like a physical barrier. Sophia stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. What do you mean, no? I mean, I'm not fixing your problems anymore. I'm not paying for your choices anymore. I'm not being treated like an ATM with a house attached anymore. You're my mother. Yes, I said quietly. I am. And for 32 years, I've shown you what unconditional love looks like. I've sacrificed, supported, and enabled you through every crisis and poor decision. And in return, you've learned to see me as a resource rather than a person. Sophia was crying again, but these tears were different, angry, frustrated. So what? You're just going to abandon me? Let my wedding be ruined because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I'm 64, Sophia. If I'm having any kind of crisis, it's a late life awakening. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Coffee later if you need reinforcements. The simple kindness of it, someone checking on me, offering support without expecting anything in return, strengthened my resolve. I need you to leave now, I told Sophia. You're welcome to come back when you're ready to have an adult conversation about how we move forward. An adult conversation. Sophia's voice rose. You want an adult conversation? Fine. Here's adult, you're a lonely old widow who's driving away the only people who care about you. You'll end up dying alone, and it'll be your own fault. The cruelty was breathtaking. Richard had been dead 4 years, and she was weaponizing my grief to manipulate me into compliance. Goodbye, Sophia, I said, standing and walking toward my front door. Mom, wait. The panic in her voice was real now. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm just scared and upset. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Sophia pounded on the door for several minutes, alternating between apologies and threats, before finally driving away. The next few hours brought a parade of enablers. Felix's ex-wife arrived first, looking uncomfortable as she delivered his message about family emergencies and my unreasonable behavior. I told her the truth about the financial exploitation, and she left quickly, clearly regretting her involvement. Then came David himself, Sophia's fiancé, a software engineer who'd always treated me with respect. He looked genuinely distressed when I opened the door. Mrs. Patterson, he said, I hope you don't mind me coming by. Sophia told me about the wedding situation, and I wanted to apologize. This was unexpected. Apologize for what, David? I had no idea Sophia had charged so much to your credit card without asking. She told me you'd offered to help with expenses, and I thought it was your gift to us. He ran his hand through his hair. If I'd known she was taking money without permission, I never would have allowed it. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Here was someone taking responsibility, showing genuine remorse. Come in, I said. Let's talk. David explained that Sophia had been handling all wedding finances, telling him everything was covered. He'd offered to contribute more, but she'd insisted it was handled. He'd had no idea about the unauthorized charges or the pattern of financial dependency. I love Sophia, he said, but I'm starting to see things about her that concern me. The way she talks about you sometimes, like you're supposed to solve all her problems. And when I suggest we should pay our own way or have a smaller wedding, she acts like I'm being unreasonable. He paused. Is this why you weren't invited to the engagement party? My heart clenched. You noticed that? I asked Sophia about it. She said you were busy that weekend, that you'd declined to come. But something about her answer felt wrong. I told him the truth about that too, about learning from Felix that I'd been excluded, about the pattern of being left out of family gatherings, about being made to feel like an inconvenience in my own daughter's life. David's face grew increasingly troubled. Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known, I would have insisted you be included. What will you do now? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. Sophia's been talking about eloping to Vegas, using our savings. But honestly, I'm starting to wonder if this is the right time for us to get married. If we can't communicate honestly about money and family. He shrugged helplessly. After David left, I called Eleanor. She arrived within an hour, carrying a bottle of wine and takeout from the Chinese restaurant. Rough day? She asked, surveying my face. Educational day, I said. I'm learning exactly who my children are when they can't get what they want from me. We were halfway through dinner when my phone rang. Felix. Mom, this has gone far enough, he said without preamble. Sophia's a mess. Her fiancé is asking questions, and you're destroying the family over money. I'm not destroying anything, Felix. I'm simply declining to fund it. We talked to Jennifer. We talked to David. You're turning everyone against us. I told them the truth. If the truth turns them against you, perhaps the problem isn't with the truth. Fine. You want to play hardball? We'll play hardball. We're considering having you declared incompetent. The threat was so absurd I actually laughed. On what grounds? Sudden behavioral changes. Irrational financial decisions. You're clearly not thinking straight. Eleanor, who could hear Felix's raised voice through the phone, rolled her eyes and mouthed, amateur. Felix, I said calmly, I've revised my will. I've consulted with my attorney. I've made carefully considered financial decisions to protect my assets from unauthorized use. If you'd like to challenge my mental competency, you're welcome to try. But I should warn you, Margaret Stone has excellent documentation of my decision-making process. The silence on the other end was satisfying. This isn't over, Felix said finally. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. 3 weeks later, the siege had evolved into something far more sinister. I was in my garden when David's car pulled into my driveway. The past 21 days had been a revelation, no frantic calls about emergencies, no unexpected visitors demanding solutions, no one treating my home like a free hotel. Eleanor and I had developed an easy routine of morning coffee and evening walks. I'd rediscovered what it felt like to live for myself. The credit card company had ruled in my favor, $23,000 in unauthorized charges reversed. Sophia faced no criminal charges, but she also received no wedding funding from my violated trust. David looked different as he approached, thinner, more serious. He carried an envelope. Mrs. Patterson, he said when I answered the door. Do you have a few minutes? We sat on the back patio where Richard's roses were blooming again after years of neglect. The wedding's off, David said without preamble. I set down my iced tea carefully. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? The question was direct, without accusation. I'm sorry you're hurt, I said honestly. I'm sorry Sophia couldn't be the person you thought she was. But I'm not sorry you discovered her true character before making a legal commitment. David nodded slowly. That's what I thought you'd say. And you're right. He handed me the envelope. This is for you. Inside was a cashier's check for $11,500, half the reverse charges. David, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. It's my responsibility. I benefited from that money, even if I didn't know where it came from. What did Sophia say when you told her you were bringing me this? David's laugh was bitter. Sophia doesn't know I'm here. We haven't spoken since I called off the wedding 2 weeks ago. What happened? I asked her to have an honest conversation about money and family dynamics. I suggested we postpone the wedding and get couples counseling. He paused. She told me I was being manipulated by a bitter old woman who couldn't stand to see her daughter happy. The familiar sting of Sophia's words was dulled by time and perspective. And you said? I said that if she couldn't see how she'd been treating you, then maybe we weren't ready to be married. After David left, I sat alone with his check. More than money, it represented acknowledgement, respect, responsibility. Everything my own children had failed to offer. That evening, I was reading on the porch when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. Sophia got out of the passenger side, followed by a young woman I didn't know. Sophia looked different, her hair unkempt, her clothes wrinkled. The polish of previous visits had been replaced by